Imagine standing at the crossroads of history, holding a secret so powerful that it changed the destiny of entire nations, a secret embedded in the faith of one man named Abraham. Now, you might be wondering, who is Abraham really? How did the choices and beliefs of one individual ripple through time to shape the very fabric of the world we live in today? What if I told you that hidden within his story is a mystery that not only shaped ancient civilizations but continues to influence the way millions live and believe, even now? Today, you're about to uncover answers to questions that historians, theologians, and curious minds have been trying to solve for centuries. This isn't just a story about a distant figure in a dusty old book. It's a living, breathing legacy that connects directly to you and the world around you, whether you realize it or not. I want you to stick with me because by the end of this video, you'll see Abraham's faith in a way that completely reshapes your understanding of history, culture, and the foundations of modern nations. Right now, you might be scrolling through endless content on YouTube, wondering if this is just another dry history lesson or a religious sermon. But I'm inviting you to lean in closer because what you're about to hear is a story that transcends religion, politics, and geography. It's about the power of faith and conviction, how a single man's belief sparked a chain reaction influencing countless lives and shaping the geopolitical map as we know it today. This video is your exclusive gateway to the untold layers of Abraham's journey, the challenges he faced, the promises he received, and the faith that carried him through uncertainty and doubt. Imagine for a moment what it takes to uproot your entire life, your home, your familiar world, all because you believe in something unseen yet powerful enough to command nations. That's the crux of Abraham's story, and it's more relevant today than ever before. You're probably wondering, what exactly was Abraham's faith? Why does it matter so much? How could one man's belief influence whole nations, their laws, their values, and their histories? The answers lie deep within the choices he made and the covenant he forged, a sacred agreement that would echo through centuries and across continents. His faith wasn't a passive hope or wishful thinking. It was an active, bold trust that demanded sacrifice and courage. And that is the journey we're about to take together, from Abraham's ancient tent to the foundations of modern-day societies, where his legacy still breathes and shapes the world stage. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will not only understand how Abraham's faith shaped nations, but why his story still calls to each one of us today. I want you to picture Abraham not just as a figure in religious texts, but as a real man with fears, hopes, and struggles, someone who faced impossible odds and yet chose to believe in a promise so incredible it seemed unbelievable. That promise was more than just personal blessing. It was about the future of entire peoples and nations that would trace their origins back to him. Imagine the weight of that responsibility on one man's shoulders. Think about the conflicts and doubts he must have wrestled with, the enemies he faced, and the tests of faith that could have shattered anyone's spirit. But Abraham didn't just survive. He thrived because his faith was the cornerstone upon which something far greater was built. This is why his story matters not just in ancient times but in the modern world. It's a blueprint for faith that moves mountains and changes destinies. We are about to dive into the heart of this remarkable story, peeling back layers to reveal the unseen forces at play, the cultural, spiritual, and political tensions that surrounded Abraham's life, and how his choices sparked ripple effects felt through thousands of years. Along the way, you'll meet key characters who played crucial roles in this saga, from the mysterious God who called Abraham to his wife Sarah, whose journey was intertwined with promises and miracles, to the nations that rose from their descendants, each carrying part of Abraham's legacy in their identity. But here's the catch. I won't give away everything right now. I want you to feel the tension, the weight of the mystery, and the power of faith as it unfolds. You'll see how the story isn't just about faith in the abstract, but about real-life challenges that tested Abraham's conviction again and again. So, why should you care? Because understanding Abraham's faith is like unlocking a key to understanding the roots of many modern conflicts, alliances, and cultural identities. Whether you're interested in history, spirituality, or simply stories of courage and conviction, this tale will resonate with you. It invites you to question, to reflect, and to see how belief, even in the face of the unknown, can alter the course of history. And most importantly, this story might just inspire you to think about your own faith, your own convictions, and the legacy you want to leave behind. This video is your invitation to journey beyond the surface and discover a story of faith that shaped the future of nations. And it starts with a question that has puzzled scholars and believers alike. What exactly did Abraham's faith look like, and how did it become the foundation for so much that followed? You're about to witness how one man's faith was not just a personal act but a pivotal moment in world history, a moment that set the stage for nations, laws, and cultures to rise. As we unravel this story, I'll guide you through ancient landscapes and timeless truths, showing you how Abraham's faith was a catalyst for hope, struggle, and transformation. This isn't just ancient history. It's a powerful reminder that what we believe shapes not only who we are, but the future we create. So, keep watching, because the answer you're seeking, the real reason Abraham's faith shaped the future of nations, is just ahead, waiting to be uncovered. But before we dive deeper, here's the twist that no one tells you. Abraham's faith was tested in ways so dramatic and unexpected that it could have changed everything. What was this test? How did it change the course of his journey and the destiny of millions? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. As we pull back the curtain on Abraham's life, it's important to understand the world he stepped into, a world filled with uncertainty, shifting alliances, and a complex web of relationships that shaped every decision he made. Abraham wasn't just a solitary figure. He was a man navigating family ties, tribal loyalties, and a growing network of promises and conflicts that would determine his fate and the fate of those who followed him. Not long before his faith was put to its ultimate test, Abraham had just made a daring move that no one around him quite understood. Leaving behind the familiar comforts of his homeland, he stepped into unknown territories, driven by a call that felt as mysterious as it was compelling. Why would someone abandon everything they knew for a promise that seemed intangible? What was this promise, and who was behind it? These questions lingered among those who watched Abraham's journey unfold with a mix of awe, skepticism, and even suspicion. Abraham's relationships were complex and full of tension, not least with his own family. His wife, Sarah, a central figure in his life, carried hopes and fears intertwined with the promises Abraham clung to. Their relationship was more than just a marriage. It was a partnership tested by time, by the seemingly impossible prospect of a future built on faith alone. Meanwhile, those around Abraham weren't always allies. There were whispers among neighboring tribes and distant kin. Some questioned his motives, others envied the favor he seemed to carry. Among these voices were individuals whose true intentions remained shrouded in mystery. Some acted as mentors, others as rivals, and a few as hidden obstacles, each contributing to the unfolding drama. As Abraham moved forward, the lines between friend and foe blurred, making every step forward feel like a gamble with unseen consequences. Adding to the tension was the growing uncertainty about the promise itself, a promise that Abraham was told would shape not just his own future, but the destiny of generations yet to come. But what exactly was this promise? Was it purely spiritual, or did it have tangible implications for power, land, and legacy? As rumors spread and debates ignited around campfires and royal courts alike, many began to question whether Abraham's faith was rooted in truth or illusion. Some skeptics saw his journey as folly, a reckless gamble driven by hope rather than reason. Others suspected darker forces at play, wondering if Abraham was merely a pawn in a larger game played by unseen powers. These suspicions deepened the mystery, inviting speculation about the real nature of the covenant Abraham had entered into and the true cost it would demand. Amid these swirling uncertainties, there were moments that hinted at a deeper conflict brewing beneath the surface. Unexpected visitors arrived at Abraham's camp, bearing cryptic messages and veiled warnings. Old alliances were tested as old enemies lurked nearby, waiting for a sign of weakness. At times, Abraham himself seemed caught between doubt and unwavering conviction, wrestling with the weight of a destiny that seemed almost too great for one man to bear. Was this internal struggle a sign of human frailty, or was it evidence of a larger spiritual battle unfolding in the background? And as Abraham's story progressed, strange events began to unfold that raised more questions than answers. Was there something or someone intentionally trying to derail the path Abraham was on? Were the challenges he faced mere coincidence, or part of a hidden plot that could alter the course of history? The tension mounted with every passing day, as Abraham's faith was pushed to the brink. Allies who once stood beside him began to waver, and the line between truth and deception grew harder to discern. Every decision carried immense risk, and the stakes could not have been higher. Behind the scenes, powers both visible and invisible seemed to be watching closely, their motives unclear, but their influence undeniable. And as we explore deeper, you'll start to see the shadows cast by these forces and the role they played in shaping Abraham's journey and, ultimately, the future of nations. What lies ahead is not just a tale of faith, but a story tangled with intrigue, conflict, and the profound mystery of how one man's belief could ignite a movement that echoes across millennia. The full truth remains just out of reach, and the next chapter promises revelations that will challenge everything you thought you knew about Abraham's legacy. So stay with me. The mystery is only getting thicker, and the answers you seek are closer than you think. Just when it seemed like Abraham was beginning to unravel the deeper layers of the promise and his role in it, unexpected obstacles started to surface. Obstacles that seemed almost designed to keep him from discovering the full truth. One of the most critical moments came when a key piece of information, something that could have unlocked long-hidden answers, vanished without a trace. This wasn't just an ordinary loss. It was as if the very proof of the covenant and its origins had been erased from history. Abraham's closest allies were baffled, and whispers spread among his followers that someone, somewhere, was deliberately trying to stop him from digging too deep. This mysterious disappearance sent ripples of fear and suspicion through his camp, shaking the foundation of trust he had painstakingly built. Who would want to hide this truth, and why? Was it an enemy, or perhaps someone closer than Abraham realized? At the same time, Abraham began receiving cryptic warnings, subtle yet chilling messages urging him to abandon his quest for answers. Some came in the form of veiled threats whispered by strangers passing through his territory, while others arrived through trusted companions who suddenly seemed hesitant, even fearful. These warnings weren't just about preserving secrets. They hinted at dangers that could ripple far beyond Abraham himself, threatening the very future that the promise was supposed to secure. The tension grew unbearable as Abraham found himself caught between his unwavering faith and the very real risk of losing everything he had built. Could this be a test of his resolve, or was it a sign that the forces at work were far more powerful and complex than he had imagined? Adding another layer of complexity to this unfolding drama was the revelation of a secret from Abraham's past, a betrayal so hidden and deep that it threatened to rewrite everything he thought he knew about his closest relationships. This betrayal wasn't just a personal wound. It had implications that could shake the entire foundation of his mission. Someone he trusted implicitly had made a choice that could have put his entire journey at risk. This shadow from the past surfaced just when Abraham needed unity and clarity the most, forcing him to question not only the loyalty of those around him, but the very nature of the promise itself. Was this betrayal an isolated event, or part of a larger scheme to manipulate the future? Meanwhile, a new figure emerged on the scene, an ally who appeared to offer guidance and support but whose intentions were anything but clear. This person spoke in riddles and seemed to know more than they were willing to share. Their presence added to the atmosphere of uncertainty and suspicion, leaving Abraham and those closest to him wondering whether they had found a valuable friend or a dangerous adversary in disguise. Every interaction with this mysterious figure left more questions than answers, raising doubts that echoed in the minds of everyone involved. Was this new ally a key to unlocking the mystery, or a cleverly disguised obstacle set to mislead and confuse? As these obstacles piled up, Abraham found himself facing not just external challenges, but an internal battle between doubt and faith, trust and suspicion. The path forward became more treacherous, the stakes higher, and the sense of urgency more intense. And yet, even as the pressure mounted, Abraham's determination to uncover the truth did not waver, though now, the cost of that truth seemed more uncertain and dangerous than ever before. What exactly was this hidden truth? Who was behind the attempts to silence it? And could Abraham's faith withstand the coming storm? The answers remained shrouded in shadow, and the next chapter of this story promises revelations that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Stay with me. The mystery is far from over, and the truth that Abraham seeks is closer than it appears, but the price to uncover it might be more than anyone is prepared to pay. Just when it seemed Abraham was grappling alone with shadows creeping around his path, an entirely new thread began to weave itself into this intricate tapestry of faith, betrayal, and mystery, one that threatened to deepen the puzzle and pull more lives into the storm. Far from Abraham's camp, someone unexpectedly connected to him received a message that mirrored the warnings Abraham had been getting, but this one came wrapped in a code so cryptic it was almost like a challenge. This person, whose identity was cloaked in secrecy, suddenly found themselves caught in a web of danger and uncertainty, forced to confront clues that didn't just question their loyalty, but threatened to unravel the very truth they all thought they understood. As this secondary storyline unfolded, it became clear that the stakes were no longer just about Abraham's faith or his journey, but about a larger network of secrets and alliances that spanned far beyond what anyone had imagined. This new character's discovery didn't simply add another voice to the chorus of suspicion. It brought a bombshell that contradicted everything Abraham had believed about the promise and the covenant. A piece of evidence surfaced, ancient and unexpected, suggesting that the origins of the faith Abraham embraced were far more complicated, perhaps even manipulated by forces that had their own agenda. Suddenly, the idea that Abraham was the sole architect of this destiny felt too simple, too neat to be true. The implications were staggering. Could it be that the very foundation of the nations built upon Abraham's faith was riddled with secrets and half-truths? As whispers of this new evidence spread, so did the ripple of doubt, forcing everyone involved, from loyal followers to distant rulers, to question not just the past, but their own roles in a story that seemed to shift under their feet. Meanwhile, relationships that once seemed steadfast began to crack under the weight of these revelations. Long-standing alliances showed fractures as suspicion seeped into conversations and decisions. Friends became potential foes, and trusted advisors' motives came under scrutiny, leaving Abraham and those around him in a state of heightened alert. Was the mysterious ally introduced earlier truly a guide, or were they part of a larger, hidden force steering the narrative for their own benefit? And what of the betrayal from the past? Could it be tied to this broader conspiracy, or was it simply a personal wound blown out of proportion by the pressure of recent events? The lines between friend, foe, and something far more ambiguous blurred until no one could be fully trusted. Every glance, every word, every gesture took on new meaning in this charged atmosphere, making every interaction a potential turning point in the unfolding drama. The stakes could not have felt higher. What was once a personal journey of faith was now a battlefield where secrets fought against revelation, where every step forward was shadowed by the risk of collapse. The growing tension was palpable, with Abraham caught in the eye of a storm that threatened not only his beliefs, but the futures of countless people tied to the promise he carried. And as this secondary storyline wove itself closer to his own, the question that echoed louder than ever was whether truth could survive in a world so riddled with deception and hidden agendas. The answers felt tantalizingly close yet just beyond reach, like a mirage shifting with every step taken. So as you watch the story unfold, ask yourself, who really holds the power in this tangled web of faith, legacy, and secrecy? Who stands to gain from keeping the truth buried, and who is risking everything to bring it to light? And most importantly, can Abraham's faith, and yours, withstand the revelations coming next? The story is far from over, and the twists ahead will challenge everything you think you know. Stay with me, because the next chapter promises to shake the foundations of this mystery even more, Just when Abraham thought the shadows surrounding him could not grow any darker, the reality of the danger he faced slammed into him with a crushing weight he could no longer ignore. It began subtly, a feeling deep in his gut that something was off, the fleeting glance of a stranger lingering too long in the distance, the faint sound of footsteps echoing behind him when he was alone, the sudden absence of a trusted companion who had been by his side since the beginning. Then came the unmistakable signs that the threat was no longer abstract or distant, but dangerously close. A direct message left at his doorstep, written in a hand he recognized but had hoped never to see again, warning him to cease his search or face consequences that would ripple far beyond himself. The tone was cold, ruthless, and chillingly clear. Abraham's world, once anchored in faith and promise, now felt like a trap tightening around him. As the reality of the threat sank in, Abraham's mind raced with a mix of fear, disbelief, and stubborn resolve. He was a man used to facing uncertainty, but this was different. This was a danger that wasn't just about faith or destiny. It was about survival, about the very real possibility that those who wanted to keep the truth hidden were willing to do anything to silence him. The faces of those closest to him flickered through his mind. Were they safe, or had the enemy already infiltrated his inner circle? His thoughts spiraled between hope and dread as paranoia crept in like a shadow, twisting every sound, every shadow, into a possible threat. He began questioning not only others but himself. Had his faith blinded him to the risks? Was his trust misplaced? And more hauntingly, how far would those opposing him go to ensure the secret remained buried? The disappearance of his companion, someone who had been his confidant through countless trials, was a devastating blow that shattered any illusions of safety. One moment they had been discussing the next steps to uncover the truth. The next, they were gone without a trace, leaving behind only a cryptic note hinting at betrayal and sacrifice. This absence was not just a loss, but a glaring sign that the forces arrayed against Abraham were ruthless and well-organized. It forced him to confront the terrifying reality that his journey was no longer just about faith or destiny. It was a battle for life itself, played out in shadows where trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. Every decision carried the weight of potential betrayal. Every ally could be an enemy in disguise, and every step forward was shadowed by the risk of a fatal misstep. Emotionally, Abraham found himself at a crossroads, caught between the stubborn light of his belief and the encroaching darkness of fear. The faith that had once been his guiding star now felt fragile, tested by forces that sought to break him completely. But even as the panic threatened to consume him, a fierce determination burned brighter beneath the surface, a refusal to let the threats and disappearances silence the truth he was chasing. Yet, the growing isolation and uncertainty gnawed at his spirit, leaving him to grapple with loneliness and the haunting question of whether he was walking into a trap he could never escape. The tension tightened, the mystery deepened, and the stakes soared higher than ever before, leaving you to wonder, who is really behind these threats, and what price will Abraham pay if he refuses to back down? The answers are still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the next move, a move that could change everything, or end it all. Just as Abraham stood on the edge of despair, feeling the walls close in and the weight of betrayal crushing his spirit, the story took a turn so sudden and shocking that it forced him, and everyone watching, to question everything they thought they knew about the journey, the promise, and even the very nature of faith itself. In the midst of his darkest hour, when every trusted face had become a suspect and every clue seemed like a dead end, someone he had counted on without hesitation stepped forward with a revelation that shattered the foundation of his world. This person, who had walked beside him through thick and thin, confessed to holding back a secret so profound it rewrote the entire narrative. The promise Abraham believed was his alone was never truly meant for him, or for the nation that would claim his name. It was part of a much larger, more complex plan, one that involved power, manipulation, and a destiny far beyond personal faith. This confession sent shockwaves not only through Abraham's heart, but through the very fabric of the story itself. The faith that had seemed so pure, so personal, was now tangled with political ambitions and hidden agendas that stretched across kingdoms and generations. The evidence that had vanished mysteriously? It wasn't just lost, it was deliberately concealed by those who wanted to control the narrative and the power it could unleash. Suddenly, Abraham was no longer just a man of faith walking a divine path. He was a player in a high-stakes game where history was written and rewritten by those who held the true power. The allies he had leaned on might have been puppets or conspirators, and the enemies lurking in the shadows could be hiding in plain sight, wearing the masks of friendship. Even more unsettling was the emergence of a new figure, someone who had remained in the background until now but whose influence cast a long and ominous shadow. This person came forward with their own agenda, a secret that challenged Abraham's understanding of loyalty, destiny, and truth. Their motivations were unclear, but their knowledge was undeniable, and the implications of their involvement hinted at a conspiracy far deeper and more dangerous than Abraham could have imagined. Was this newcomer a savior or a saboteur? A guardian of the true legacy, or an agent of destruction? As Abraham struggled to reconcile this revelation with his faith and his mission, viewers were left to question, if everything believed so far was only part of a grand illusion, then what is the real truth? Who can be trusted when even the closest confidants harbor secrets that could change the course of history? This plot twist didn't just shift the story, it transformed it into a labyrinth of uncertainty where every fact was suspect and every motive questioned. The promise that once seemed a beacon of hope became a tangled web of power, betrayal, and hidden agendas. Abraham's journey, instead of a straightforward path of faith, revealed itself as a complex struggle against unseen forces and carefully guarded lies. And as the pieces began to fall into place, the question that loomed largest was whether Abraham, and all who believed in him, could ever reclaim the truth from the shadows, or if they were doomed to remain pawns in a game far bigger than themselves. The story had taken a dark, unpredictable turn, leaving viewers on the edge, desperate to uncover what lay hidden beneath the surface before it was too late. The weight of the new revelations pressed down on Abraham harder than ever before, twisting his path into something almost unbearable. Suddenly, he found himself staring down impossible choices that tore at his heart and soul with a ferocity that no prayer could easily soothe. Those he once trusted, those closest to him, now wore the heavy burden of suspicion, and the lines between friend and foe blurred so thoroughly that Abraham was forced to confront a truth that cut deeper than any betrayal. Someone he loved might be complicit in the very schemes threatening everything he believed in. The thought alone was agonizing, but the reality hit when he came face to face with this person, the tension between them thick enough to choke. Their eyes held a mixture of fear, guilt, and a strange defiance, leaving Abraham to wrestle with the gut-wrenching question of whether loyalty could survive this fracture, or if love itself was just another casualty in a war for truth. Just as if that emotional torment wasn't enough, Abraham was thrust into a cruel ultimatum that made the stakes painfully clear: protect himself and the fragile peace around him by burying the truth once and for all, or risk losing everything, his family, his faith, and even his life, by daring to expose the dark forces manipulating the destiny he once thought was his alone. The choice was devastating. On one side lay safety, silence, and a slow death of the promise that had fueled his every step. On the other, danger, isolation, and the chance to ignite a revolution of truth that could shake nations, but at an unimaginable cost. The ultimatum wasn't just a test of courage, but a profound moral reckoning that tore at Abraham's very identity. How do you hold on to your faith when the price of honesty might be the people you cherish most? How do you keep fighting when every move could be your last? In these moments, Abraham's mind became a battleground of doubt and determination. The fear of losing those he loved gnawed relentlessly at his heart, even as a fierce flame of purpose burned in his chest. He knew the path ahead was riddled with danger, betrayal, and uncertainty, but the thought of turning back felt like a betrayal to himself, to the generations that would follow. And yet, every conversation, every glance from those around him hinted at secrets kept and truths twisted, feeding the gnawing paranoia that at any moment, the fragile trust he clung to might shatter completely. This internal conflict was raw and unfiltered, a human struggle of faith versus fear, love versus duty, safety versus truth, and it drew anyone watching into the emotional whirlwind without mercy. The tension in the air was almost suffocating, as if the very breath Abraham took could tip the balance between salvation and ruin. And just when it seemed the pressure couldn't escalate any further, new questions arose that pierced the silence like shards of glass. Who truly pulled the strings behind the scenes, and what lengths would they go to ensure their secrets stayed buried? Could Abraham find allies in this sea of deception, or was he destined to stand alone against a tide of darkness? The story had morphed into a high-stakes dance where every choice carried weight, every word could betray, and the future rested on the edge of a knife. Abraham's struggle was no longer just about faith or legacy. It was about survival in a world where truth was the most dangerous weapon of all, and every step forward could be the one that breaks him. And as the story unfolds, one thing is certain. The answers that come next will challenge everything you thought you knew about courage, loyalty, and the cost of seeking the truth. Abraham's world erupted into chaos faster than he could catch his breath, the fragile threads holding his reality together snapping under the sheer force of a truth so vast it threatened to swallow him whole. What he once believed was a solitary battle against hidden enemies revealed itself to be just the tip of a sprawling, deeply entrenched conspiracy reaching far beyond his immediate circle, a network of powerful figures, shadowy alliances, and manipulations that spanned kingdoms and generations. Every face he had trusted now flickered with new, sinister meaning, and the walls of deception closed in with merciless speed. The realization hit him like a thunderclap. He was not just fighting for his own faith or legacy, but for the very future of nations entwined in this web of lies and control. As the layers peeled back, the truth was brutal and unforgiving. A confidant he had leaned on for strength, whose presence had been a beacon in the darkest nights, revealed themselves as a key player in this vast scheme, a puppet master carefully pulling strings that had brought Abraham to this breaking point. Their betrayal wasn't born of simple greed or fear, but of a cold, calculated ambition that had been disguised behind smiles and whispered promises. The shock of this revelation cut deeper than any sword, shaking Abraham's faith to its core and threatening to crush the flickering hope he still clung to. The people he had sworn to trust were the very architects of the shadows chasing him, and the enemy was far closer and far more dangerous than he ever imagined. The stakes exploded to an unbearable height as Abraham raced against time, every move shadowed by the threat of exposure, every ally suspect, every whisper a potential trap. The conspiracy wasn't just about silencing one man's search for truth. It was about maintaining a grip on power so ruthless it crushed dissent and manipulated destiny itself. Abraham found himself in a high-speed, heart-pounding game of cat and mouse, where each second lost could mean betrayal, capture, or worse. His thoughts spun between fear and defiance, the pressure building like a storm ready to break, and the urgency of the moment demanding every ounce of his courage and wit. This was no longer a spiritual journey. It was a desperate fight for survival, where the cost of failure was unimaginable and the cost of victory uncertain. Through this relentless chaos, Abraham's humanity shone brightest. The anguish over those lost, the relentless hope for justice, the raw pain of betrayal, and the fierce love that refused to be extinguished. The narrative pulsed with the tension of lives hanging in the balance, the collision of personal sacrifice with the sweeping forces of history, and the crushing weight of choices made in the shadows. As the pieces of the conspiracy clicked into place, the question no longer was who to trust, but whether Abraham could outwit a system designed to destroy anyone daring to challenge it. The climax surged toward an inevitable reckoning, with danger closing in from all sides and the future of everything Abraham held dear trembling on a knife's edge. The story had reached a fever pitch, and the next moves would decide not just his fate, but the fate of countless others caught in the web of this sprawling, ruthless conspiracy, the moment Abraham had been racing toward, haunted by fear, driven by faith, and fueled by a desperate need for truth. finally arrived with a brutal clarity that left no room for hesitation. In a place shrouded in shadows yet illuminated by flickering torches, he stood face to face with the architect of the conspiracy, the mastermind whose hands had manipulated destinies and twisted promises into weapons of control. The air was thick with tension, every breath heavy, every word loaded with years of betrayal and unanswered questions. Abraham's heart pounded fiercely as he confronted this figure, whose calm demeanor masked a ruthless ambition that had ensnared so many lives, including those he had once trusted implicitly. The confrontation was not just a battle of wills, but a clash of worlds, faith against manipulation, hope against despair, truth against deception. As the conversation spiraled into accusations and confessions, layers of the mystery peeled back with a brutal honesty that shattered illusions and revealed the true scale of the deception. The final piece of evidence emerged, a hidden document, a forgotten prophecy, or perhaps a secret pact, something so profound that it reframed the entire story Abraham had lived and fought for. It wasn't just about the promise made to him or the fate of his lineage. It was about a much larger power struggle, one that involved gods and kings, faith and politics, and a destiny intertwined with the very foundations of nations. The revelation was staggering, and for a moment, even Abraham faltered under its weight. But his spirit, forged in trials and tempered by hope, refused to break. The psychological battle that followed was intense, a test of resolve as the villain tried to twist Abraham's doubts into chains, using every word, every truth turned upside down to shake his faith and force submission. Yet Abraham's response was more than defiance. It was a declaration of belief in a truth greater than any scheme or conspiracy. The tension exploded in a moment of raw emotion, a psychological duel where every word was a weapon and every silence a battlefield. Just when it seemed Abraham might claim victory, exposing the conspiracy and reclaiming the promise that had been stolen, the story threw its final, unexpected twist. The mastermind revealed that Abraham himself had been a pawn in an even larger design, a secret that challenged everything he believed about his own origins and purpose. This revelation sent shockwaves not only through Abraham's soul but through the entire narrative, leaving viewers breathless and questioning everything they had witnessed. The truth was more complex, more intertwined, and far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined, setting the stage for a story that refused to end with easy answers. In this climactic moment, viewers were left suspended between revelation and uncertainty, with the fate of Abraham, his legacy, and the future of nations hanging in a delicate balance. The emotional power of the confrontation, the psychological intensity of the battle, and the sheer unpredictability of the final twist made this climax unforgettable, a moment where faith and destiny collided with betrayal and ambition in a way that forced everyone watching to reconsider what they thought they knew about truth, power, and the cost of uncovering secrets best left buried. The story, though reaching a peak, left open a haunting question. In a world built on promises and lies, who truly holds the power to shape the future? After the storm of revelations, betrayals, and impossible choices, Abraham stood alone beneath a sky heavy with stars, each one a silent witness to the journey that had reshaped not just his destiny, but the fate of countless lives intertwined with his own. The confrontation had shattered illusions, torn away the veils of deceit, and forced him to see the world in a new, harsher light. Yet amid the ruins of trust and the echoes of broken promises, something profound had taken root, a deeper understanding of faith, not as blind certainty, but as a resilient flame burning through the darkest nights. Abraham found a fragile peace, not in having all the answers, but in embracing the mystery itself, knowing that the truth was a path, not a destination. The conspiracies that once threatened to consume him now felt like shadows he could navigate with eyes wide open, aware that the journey ahead would always hold new challenges and hidden truths. Though many questions remained, about who had truly pulled the strings, about the forces shaping nations from behind the curtain, and about Abraham's own place in the grand tapestry of history, the weight of those unknowns no longer crushed him. Instead, they became a call to vigilance, to courage, and to a faith tested but unbroken. The people who had once seemed allies or enemies faded into the background of a larger, more intricate story, one that stretched beyond any single life and touched the eternal. Abraham's legacy was no longer just a promise of descendants or nations. It was the enduring testament of one man's struggle to hold onto truth and hope in a world designed to bury them. As the story drew to a close, the last lingering image was not of victory or defeat, but of a quiet dawn breaking over the horizon, a symbol that even after the fiercest battles, new beginnings are possible, and faith can guide us through uncertainty. Yet, beneath that light, a subtle hint remained. The conspiracy, vast and deep, had only revealed part of its face. Somewhere, in the shadows beyond sight, other players waited, and other secrets lingered, suggesting that Abraham's story was but one chapter in an unfolding saga that would continue to challenge hearts and minds. This ending, rich with emotional depth and unresolved mystery, invites viewers to reflect on their own journeys of faith, trust, and the pursuit of truth, reminding us all that sometimes the most powerful stories are those that live on in our questions as much as our answers.